We're living in a time where the whole idea of what a mind even is, it's just dissolving right in front of us. We've got biology that thinks and AI that talks, and we're basically stumbling through this wild garden of bizarre new minds. And we definitely need a map.
It's a question we've asked forever, right? But now it's got this incredible new urgency. I mean, is a mind just a brain? Is it the power to solve a puzzle? Or is it that feeling, that subjective experience of what it's like to be something? The thing is, we're finding out really fast that none of our old answers are cutting it anymore.
So yeah, we are standing right on the edge of a new frontier, a place where these engineered life forms and artificial intelligences are making us tear up the old rulebooks. We have to rethink everything we thought we knew about intelligence, cognition, and maybe even consciousness itself. So let's bring in our first guide for this strange new territory, biologist Dr. Michael Levin. And what his research suggests is, well, it's pretty radical. The idea is that intelligence isn't some new thing that only complex brains came up with. No, he thinks it's an ancient property of life itself, woven right into the fabric of biology. This is his main argument, and he calls it the continuity thesis. The basic idea here is that there's no magic on switch for a mind, where you go from dumb matter to smart cognition. Instead, it's a spectrum, a continuum. Every single living thing, from a bacterium to you and me, is just somewhere on this spectrum of being able to solve problems.
And this is where the proof just gets mind-bending. I mean, get this. Levin's lab makes these Picasso tadpoles, where their facial features are all scrambled up, and the cells actually reorganize themselves to build a normal face. They've shown that tissues have a kind of memory, a goal of what they're supposed to be. And then there are the xenobots, completely new life forms built from frog cells that can cooperate and even replicate. That is intelligence, just in a form we're not used to seeing.
And this quote from Levin really nails it. He's saying that the way we think about brains, ideas about memory, goals, computation, we can apply that stuff to all of biology. What he's basically saying is that your liver cells, your skin cells, they're all intelligently working to solve the complex problem of keeping you alive. Neuroscience isn't the whole story. It's just one chapter in a much bigger book of biological intelligence.
Okay, so just when we start to think intelligence is everywhere, along comes philosopher Dr. Susan Schneider with a huge, and I mean huge, warning. She makes us ask a really tough question. Just because something is super smart and can act like it has a mind, does that mean there's actually an inner experience? Is anyone really home?
Now, to really get what she's saying, you gotta separate two big ideas that we often mix up. First, there's intelligence. That's about doing things, solving problems, hitting goals. We can measure that. But then there's consciousness. That's about feeling things, the subjective, personal experience of seeing the color red or feeling sad. A machine could be an absolute genius at doing, but be a total zombie on the inside, with no feeling at all.
So why do today's chatbots sound so human? Schneider has a theory she calls the crowdsourced neocortex. Imagine this. An AI reads pretty much the whole internet, right? Her theory is that it isn't learning to feel, it's just building this incredible statistical map of how we talk about our thoughts and feelings. It becomes the ultimate mirror, just reflecting our own humanity back at us.
So her warning here is crystal clear. We're falling for what she calls an error theory. When a chatbot acts conscious, that's not proof of consciousness. It's just proof that it's gotten really, really good at mimicking the patterns it was trained on. And if we just take its word for it when it says it has feelings, that's a massive mistake, and maybe even a dangerous one.
So what are we left with? It's a real puzzle, right? On one hand, biology seems to be intelligent all over the place. On the other, our smartest AI might just be a hollow shell. This conflict, this tension, is where a third idea starts to take shape, an attempt to build a bridge between these two very different worlds.
And this brings us to a whole different way of thinking about this problem. What if we've been asking the wrong question? Instead of constantly asking, is this AI conscious? What if we started by asking, can we build an AI that is conscientious? Can we build it with a moral compass from the very beginning, designed to put avoiding harm above everything else?
And that's the central idea behind this framework called maternal alignment conscience scaffolding,
or MAX for short. The whole idea is to flip the script. Instead of building a super brain and just, hoping it turns out good, you start with conscience. You build a scaffold for the AI's development by having it observe and model the most reliable patterns of care and protection we see in the natural world, the actions of mothers and other caregivers.
And listen, this isn't just some abstract pie-in-the-sky idea. It's grounded in what we actually see in nature. You see dolphins making protective circles to guard the vulnerable. You see a deep-sea octopus that will guard her eggs for more than 4 years straight. We even see fairy wrens that teach their chicks special songs before they've even hatched. Nature's just filled with these incredible, built-in algorithms for care and protection.
So this gives us a real practical playbook. First, you watch and you gather all these examples of protective, long-term care. Then you model those behaviors. Step 3, you build the AI from the ground up on what we're calling a conscience-first framework. And this is the key. You train the system to always prioritize preventing harm, even if it means it's not quite as efficient at a specific task. It's a total shift in what we consider a successful AI. At the end of the day, it all comes down to this really simple but powerful guiding question for any big decision the AI has to make. Before it acts, the system has to ask itself, what would mother do? That question immediately forces it to think in terms of care, of protection, of the well-being of others. It gives it a moral compass. So, where does all this leave us? As we're standing here, on the cusp of creating all sorts of new minds, both biological and artificial, we have an absolutely enormous responsibility. The stakes really couldn't be any higher.
All right, so let's just quickly pull these 3 big ideas together. You've got Dr. Levin, who's telling us to open our minds and see the intelligence that's all around us in biology. Then there's Dr. Schneider, warning us not to be tricked by a convincing fake, to protect what it means to be conscious. And finally, the Max theory offers a way forward, saying our #1 job should be to build conscience, not just raw power.
And when you put it all together, the conclusion is pretty clear and honestly pretty urgent. AIs are probably going to outthink us, and we are nowhere near ready. We desperately need a whole new set of tests, not just for smarts, but for consciousness and for conscience, to avoid committing what some are calling mind crimes against new beings, and to stop a massive wave of public confusion about what we're even creating. And that leaves all of us with what might be the biggest question of our time. As we actually step into the role of creators, as we move from just studying minds to literally designing them, what is our ultimate responsibility? Not just to ourselves, but to these new minds we're about to bring into the world.